Should drivers over the age of 80 have to take medical tests? A Scottish judge has called for compulsory testing after a 91-year-old with dementia killed a toddler. Edith Duncan lost control of her car while trying to turn on a busy road in Edinburgh, and she ended up hitting 3-year-old Xander Irvine. He tragically died of catastrophic injuries in hospital, and since then, an inquiry found that Duncan should not have been allowed to drive. Now there are calls for elderly drivers to have to undergo testing as a matter of priority. So I wonder if you think that's fair. Maybe you're an older driver, you've never had an incident on the road, you're very confident about your driving, or maybe you're simply worried that you'll become isolated, lose your independence if your licence is taken away. 0207 862 2222, that's the number. Please do give us a call. I'd love to hear from you. Maybe you're concerned about your elderly relatives driving. Tessa, what do you think about this one?
Well, it's, first of all, a horrific tragedy.
Yes.
I work quite a lot at the moment with people whose children have died in war, and I'm really struck by a death outside the natural order is something that is incredibly difficult.
Yes,
I think probably impossible to recover from.
Yes.
So that's the first thing that needs to be underlined. And probably the most dangerous thing you can do in Britain, irrespective of your age, but particularly if you're older or younger, is drive. Having said that, we do have the second safest roads in Europe. So we also need to underline that we do that quite well in Britain, because we're always Britain bashing. We have quite safe roads. And while if you work out on a line, on a curve, for every mile driven, and you look at those who are over the age of 75, particularly over 80, yes, they are a little more prone to bumps and crashes. In fact, because they drive far less on much smaller roads, they're much less likely to have an accident than those in the really high-risk category, which are men, particularly men between the ages of 18 and 24. And we're not suggesting here, are we, that we should test all men. 75% of fatal accidents, incidentally, are men at the driving wheel. Are we suddenly saying, let's gender test people, or let's work out how much testosterone
No, we're
they've
not,
got?
but we're saying over the age maybe of 80, self-certifying every 3 years, which is what happens now, which is people just saying, yes, I'm safe to drive, yes, I can see fine, yes, I'm absolutely free of any dementia or Alzheimer's or anything like that, I'm perfectly fine. I think so. Might not be enough. It might be better to have an independent opinion, Lizzie.
Yes.
You know, a doctor, a nurse, somebody just testing eyesight, testing cognitive impairment and saying, yes, I think you're fine to drive, or I'm terribly sorry, I don't.
Don't. Look, safety is paramount. And my mother, who is watching, is nearly 90.
Oh, let's say good morning. What's her
Hello,
name?
Gloria.
Gloria, hello.
Gloria, please ring in, because, Mum, you're not going to agree with me. But she drives everywhere. She drives like Stirling Moss. And she thinks she's perfectly great at driving. And I worry because she drives too fast, and it was always chatting as she drives. She drives like this, talking. And it worries me. And it worries, you know, if she does have an accident. And the thing is, there are record numbers now of UK drivers that are over 90 years old.
Well, we're growing older and older as a population, aren't we? So there are going to be more and more older drivers. But let me ask you, do you think that she really ought not to drive? What would happen to her life if she were deprived of her car?
She lives in a rural area of Norfolk, and it's her independence, and she loves it, and she's very, very sociable. She's out more than me, can you believe it? But
Not really.
She really is.
It's amazing.
And she loves being out, and it would affect her independence, obviously. But I think we need to have these tests put in place so we can just see. She might be fine, but I think it is necessary.
I think
especially
let's
with the
go straight to the
recent
phones,
news.
because we've
I
got
really
lots
do.
of calls coming in on this, and I'm not at all surprised. Let's bring in Amy, who's in Carlisle. Hello, Amy.
Hello, Vanessa.
Hi. What do you think about this one?
I think it's very important that everybody should be made to prove they're competent. I'm an HGV driver.
Yeah.
Over the age of 45, we have to have medicals every 5 years to prove that we're fit to drive. CPC, periodic training, driving assessments, just to make sure we're still safe and fit to be on the road.
Amy, have you ever had colleagues who think they are fit, you know, stroll into the medical feeling fine and are told, I'm so sorry, although this is your job, you can't do it? Have you had that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. People with high blood pressure, you know, they're at risk of having heart attacks at the wheel.
Yeah.
People whose eyesight isn't as brilliant as they think. You just mentioned eyesight. But I'll give you an example. I mean, my mum was born in 50. She's 74. She passed her test in 1967. Wow. She's fully competent and fit to drive. She's safe to drive. But she doesn't know what half the road signs mean. We'll be driving along and we'll be poodling along because we passed the national speed limit sign. She doesn't know that means the road's changed to 60. Bless her, she got done for speeding a few years back. They took the 40-mile-an-hour road signs down off a urban dual carriageway. Didn't replace them with anything. She just assumed it was still 40. Bless her, she got pulled.
Do you think that it ought to be, I dread to say this because I'd absolutely hate to do this myself, but do you think it ought to be sort of compulsory to redo the driving test to some extent, maybe a modified version after a certain time?
No, what are we talking about, guys?
Yes.
This is horrible.
I don't want to, but
for safety.
Stop, back in the box. Back in the box.
Safety. Amy's just saying she doesn't know the signs on the roads.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
But, and actually, do you know, I probably don't know all the signs in the roads, and I get very confused in Wales. It's all in 2 languages. I mean, we all have our challenges, but the truth is we have made the roads much safer in this country, incidentally, with the 20-mile-an-hour limit, which I abhor, but it has saved my life because I am one of those people who wanders out on her phone. Literally, a car would have killed me. Instead, he stopped just by my shin because he was doing the compulsory 11 miles an hour that happens in London because traffic can't actually move.
Yeah.
Do you know the one place in Britain, actually, or the United Kingdom, that there is no 20-mile-an-hour limit? Northern Ireland. I couldn't believe it. Went like SH1T off a shovel. It was.
Well, the truth is, Tess, that 12% of our elderly people is rising all the time. We're getting involved in horrific collisions. And look at the story we've just seen. It is a worry, and they haven't got all their full faculties. I know. I love my mum dearly, but she is not. I think a test would ease all of our minds.
Imagine her having to go through it, though.
Yes,
gosh,
I know it's ghastly thought, but safety obviously is the highest.
Let's talk to. We've got lots of calls coming in. Let's talk to Grace in Gloucestershire about this. Hello, Grace. Thanks for ringing.
Hello there.
Hi. What do you think about elderly people driving?
Well, for me, it's about responsibility. And even the best of tests doesn't necessarily cover responsibility. Right. Now, with myself, both my parents, I have had conversations. I should say I'm also 77 now myself. But when my mother, who had dementia, I knew was getting unsafe on the road, and it was essential to have a conversation with her. And in fact, her, my father and me, we ended up crying, saying it will come to all of us one day when we have to face this responsibility that actually we are no longer safe on the road.
How did she deal with it when you and your dad confronted her, Grace, and said, look, Mum, this really is the end of your driving life?
She did take it. She did. But as I say, it was a sad day, but we faced it together. And thankfully, she then took it on board. And I mean, for her, the conversation was around how would you feel if you actually hurt someone else? Yeah. With my father, it was quite different. I had to sort of find a different tack because he was sort of much more blusterous and was saying, no, I'm sorry, you know. But I actually managed to find a way by getting him more interested in a large motor scooter. Oh. Got him off the road that way. So it was horses for courses, really. The conversations had to be had.
Do you feel that you ducked the conversation for a while, that there were some months or maybe years when you probably should have done it, but you couldn't bring yourself to do it?
No. When it became obvious to me, and to the family, that the conversation was necessary, then that's what we did. Yeah. We decided we had to. And as far as having some sort of testing, it concerns me because as soon as you standardise a test, there are going to be people who are outside the edges of the test. And I'm not throwing the testing out, that idea, I'm not throwing it out completely, but I'm concerned when you get into tick box testing.
Yes.
And also it's expensive, and also they're running behind with testing.
And who does the testing?
Deal. Grace, thank you so much. Can I ask you about what Jeremy said earlier on the show? Because when we discussed this in the papers, he said he thinks that the families of those elderly people who get caught in collisions and accidents and maybe, God forbid, hurt people should be prosecuted because he thinks it's the family's responsibility to report them or to say to somebody they shouldn't be having a licence. Do you agree with that?
I actually do tend to agree with Jeremy with that, because as a family member, you can see if your mother, father, whoever is deteriorating slowly. They won't see it because they you know, maybe they're in their own world. But sadly, you do have a responsibility for safety.
I want to speak to our next caller. She's called Liz. She's in Kent. She's 81. And Liz, you're driving.
I'm still driving, yes. I get my family to check me. If they're driving with me, if they're with me, I say, please check my driving. My partner, I say, please check my driving. Now, the point is that I see, by the way, I got my degree at the age of 62.
Congratulations.
Yeah. The brain does not dissolve after 80. The brain is still there. It is a minority of people that cannot drive properly. It's some people have trouble remembering things. I do. We all do. So why do we certify that elderly people must have a test? I believe that everybody should have a test. We drove to Poole from Canterbury over the weekend. And I've got to admit that I was the passenger and the co-driver and the person that plotted the way we were going to go. And the people that were driving, obviously under the age of 50, on their phones, making awful moves on the road, a congested road, which is the M3 or the 303, or the M20. And they were making mistakes, horrendous mistakes. Old people are not the only ones to need testing.
Liz, you know, you said that you ask family members and your partner when they're in the car with you, you say, what do you think of my driving? Am I up to speed? Am I okay? And they say yes. If they said no, what would the impact be on your life? If they said, sorry, Liz, actually, you don't seem to be able to see very well, or you seem to be making very slow choices.
Let's get me get me tested.
Right.
And I would probably, if they wanted to get me tested,
yeah. But Liz, not everyone's like you, sad. I mean, Liz, I think you're fantastic to actually say, how am I driving, and ask. You know, I wish my mum would do that. She won't ask because she thinks she's a great driver.
A lot of old people don't have family. My generation, a lot of them haven't had kids. When we're old, huge numbers of us won't have, actually, frankly, interfering children trying to remove our independence.
It's caring, and because I love my mother.
I call it enforced helplessness, actually. And I work with a large number of particularly wartime veterans. They're properly old. I've just been to a 100th birthday, and the sign-off on her birthday party speech was, the doctor's just given me 3 more years behind the wheel. Whoa, we all went in the
Let's have a word with Dorothy in Edinburgh. Dorothy, hello.
Hello.
Hello, are you driving?
No, I'd just like to make a very quick point, and that is, I have a neighbour who's over 80, just over 80, and she steers her car with her elbows on the wheel. She is not safe. I've been in her car once. I would never do it again. She's swerving over the road, and as I say, she's driving with her elbows, not her hands.
I'm just trying to think how you even do that with your elbows on the wheel. But Dorothy, did you feel that you needed to say something? Would you ever say anything?
No. I probably should have, but I didn't feel I could. When I'm saying with her elbows, it's as if she's putting her hands in the centre of the wheel and leaning on top of the wheel and then steering with her elbows.
Gosh, we were told 10 to 2. Do you remember 10 to 2?
That something like that. Then I think you have a responsibility to say something because that's a worry, isn't it?
Would you, Dorothy, say something? Do you think you do have a responsibility?
Because I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, I was just wondering whether you felt that, as Lizzie said, that you do have a responsibility to say something or do something.
Actually, yes, I do have a responsibility, but in this particular case, really? I didn't do it.
Oh, God.
But Dorothy, to what extent is she really a risk compared to the young buck out with his friends on a Friday night? Statistically, is far more likely and
actually younger drivers they've decreased by 45% in accidents, and elderly people are up 12%, and it is a worry, Tess.
But I just want to know how fast she's going. Is she going at 10 mile an hour? Because then she's not going to kill you, probably.
Oh, I would say, I don't really see, I'm not a driver, but what I would say is she's definitely driving too fast to be in control of her car.
And maybe the time has come to try to say something, although I absolutely appreciate how difficult, awkward, embarrassing the whole confrontation is. And this is only a neighbour, this isn't even a family member. Gosh, Dorothy, thanks so much for ringing. Let's talk to Alison in Cumbria. Hello, Alison.
Hello, sweetheart. How are you doing?
Hello, sweetheart. I'm all right. Thank you very much for asking. What about the driving situation?
Well, my mother died of dementia when she was 86-year-old, but 7 years before that, I had to have a licence revoked because I went out in the car. It was absolutely horrific. She wasn't overtaking cars with any judgment and taking wing mirrors off. And it was like, Mother, you know, just please pull over. And she was like, oh, Alison, you know, just I'm all right. And I thought, no, you're not. On oncoming cars, it was a danger. And then braking at the end of a road, she was like going over the white lines into the road when there was traffic coming to the right. She always used to say to me, is it outcoming, Alison? Is it outcoming? And I was like looking left and where I was sat in the passenger seat, and I was going, yeah, it's clear. But then I started to get scared because she was too concentrated on me. Was she concentrating on other cars coming from the right? And I thought, oh no, this is getting. And then she was going up the curbs. She was clipping curbs and things.
Gosh.
And I thought, no.
Alison, when you got it revoked, obviously it was against her will that you did this. So how did you go about doing it? Who did you sort of report it to? And how on earth did you tell her that that's what you had decided to do?
Well, she was. I had her diagnosed with dementia, obviously, because there was other options. There was other options in a way to get in touch with the insurance company and things. But at the end of the day, it was a DVLA, and the thing is, you can have them revoked, and I had to do. But I kept the car for a while, and I drove her around. I kept the car keys, and but she was really frustrated because she wasn't able to drive. Oh, let me drive. So we got rid of the car. So that was out of it, and my husband, he helped out an awful lot, and we got her out every day for a drive. Because we ended up having to move in with her because she ended up being 24/7. But at the end of the day, she had to get off the road. She had to do.
Alison, thank you for the call, and also your description of the driving, just terrifying listening to it.
It's terrifying.
And, you know, is there out coming from the other direction when you're the driver of the car, flipping heck?
Scary.
You did the right thing, but it must have been incredibly tough. And anyone who's used to driving all their life and suddenly told they can't get behind a wheel, obviously it's terribly frustrating.
Also, I think there's a danger here that we build up this really cranky, pretty ageist picture based on anecdotes. My mum had a nasty double bump. You know, you bump and then you're so shocked you bump again. And that was a real salient lesson for her, and she's totally reduced her driving, and she doesn't go on the big main roads and on the motorways. And I think most people actually are like my mother. They cut their coat according to their cloth. They're sensible.
Let's talk to Anne in Leicestershire. Hello, Anne. Thanks for ringing.
Good morning.
Hi, Anne. Can't hear you. Oh, there we are. Marvellous. Marvellous. What would you like to say about this, Anne?
I don't think that 80-year-olds need to have a medical. I do think it would be a good idea if they went to a central place where they had an abnormal driving test to see they can handle the car, they can deal with the traffic. I lived in London. I've had a driving licence for 57 years. I lived in London. Driving in London was a doddle. You were bumper to bumper.
True.
I moved to Leicester. Suddenly I'm in zones that are 40, 50 mile an hour, motorways, the lot. It hasn't made a great deal of difference to me. I can get in there and I can drive like the rest of the maniacs out there on the road. if you don't, in a place like Leicester where you've got these speeds, if you don't, you're holding everybody up. Somebody took you. That suddenly will take your attention away from what you're doing. So you get in there and you get along with them. Now, because you're 80, doesn't mean to say everybody at 80 is got dementia. I haven't.
No, absolutely.
And I don't think you can keep judging people because maybe they made one or two mistakes. And I just think to myself, well, just go to a place, pay £50. You have a driving instructor with you. He takes you out on the route. He sees how you perform in traffic, out of traffic, country place, whatever. And if he's happy and your eyesight is okay and your hearing is fine, well, then
I'm going to have to stop you there, my darling, but what a lovely, sprightly call. Thank you so much. Thanks to Anne. Thanks for everybody who called in on this subject.